So please copy this down. So loans, mortgages, credit cards, and essentially we're talking borrowing here. We're borrowing money. We're not investing. It's a different scenario. So you should recognize that there's your TVM solver, your line up there with the definitions. So do the TVM first, okay? And I will explain it to you once you have that written down. Credit cards, loans, mortgages. I want you to understand that obviously the first two stay the same, but this is very important. So I'm actually going to, whenever you're buying something, you're planning on purchasing something, and you have a down payment, you have to make sure you subtract the down payment from whatever that total is. So if you're buying a car for $15,000 and you have $5,000 down, make sure you go 15 minus 5, that's 10, okay? You're only borrowing 10,000. Present value should be positive. Would that make sense? Because if you're borrowing 10,000, where's that money going towards? It's coming to you, right? If the bank gives you money, that is positive. Payment is like the repayment, right? Like you're paying it back. That should be negative. It's zero if no payments are being made. So sometimes you just, like I can think of student loans. You borrow money, you don't pay any interest until you get your degree and you're done, and then all of a sudden you have to start to repay it. Sometimes if you just let it sit, they'll charge you interest for the amount of time you weren't able to pay, right? So that could be a scenario. So then that would be zero. Future value, you want this to, in general, be zero if you want to pay it off, right? So if you're planning on paying off that loan, like the amount you got in present value, you would like to set future value to zero if you want to pay it off, which is 99% of the cases, it's going to be zero, okay? PY, it's payments per year, so watch out for monthly, biweekly, semi-monthly. Just watch out for how often you're paying. CY is the compounding periods per year, okay? Another thing, just like before, if the question asks for how long did it take to pay off this loan, if you're trying to solve for the time, you will solve for N. Once you have N, you divide it by PY to get the number of years. So this is how you get your time in years. All right, so that's important. N in and of itself represents the total number of payments. Okay, so N represents a total number of payments. So if the question asks you, how many payments will it take to pay this thing off? I can tell you this, the most common question is for credit cards. Credit cards, they charge you a minimum amount every month, no matter what. If you owe money, they'll charge you a minimum. So then you might have to say, like, how long would it take if I make that payment? Then you're trying to solve how many payments that is. And you need to round to the whole number if that's what they're asking you for. Yes?
How would you solve for N if you're not giving years?
That's just it. You don't know how long it's going to take you. Like if you're solving for N, you're either wanting to know the number of payments or you want to find out how many years it's going to take you. Both are found in here. Except for if you want the time in years, you got to do a little bit of extra work. You got to solve for N, right? And then what do? Divide by whatever you put into PY here. That's going to give you your time in years. Does that make sense? Okay. More to come. Okay, I won't give you too much because then you're going to be like, what are you talking about? Stop talking. It's too much. Following this, so underneath, more. Interest paid in X number of years. So let's say the question asks you, if it's a 5-year loan, they might say, figure out the interest over 5 years. Or it might be a 5-year loan, but you're wondering, how much interest will I have paid over the first 2 years? Right? That's why this is X. We use the same as before. We use the sum of interest for function. We start with 1, and then we'll just go years times PY. It's very important to write down the highlighted part here. And I will erase this part. I just thought of it last minute. And I think if you do the highlighted part, you're safe. So can you just ignore this bubble? I don't want to erase the bubble because then you might say, I might erase the formulas. Notice that it says or. So you either use the sum of interest or you go n times PMT minus the present value. But watch how that formula changes if there are no payments. If you're not making any payments, you're just like, I'm borrowing money, and then it's going to accumulate interest, and then I'm going to pay it off all at the end. Then the formula turns to this. So have all three on your study sheet. When we're all said and done, I will ask you to go to the front of your booklet, and I will put down the page numbers where all the important info is, okay? Finance is a beast of a unit. It's the one that, they're just like, hey, just teach them everything, okay? And we're like, there's so much. Like, when does it stop, right? So I'm going to try to give you just little bites and then hopefully build from that. We're done with that? Okay. Some more. I'm telling you, it's going to be all filled up by the time you're done here. I mean, some of you your writing is so neat. I needed to make sure you could read it. Okay, so that's why I made it bigger than I probably would have done on my study sheet. I encourage you to write down the whole thing. Don't just shorten what it says, because then you might not know how to use it properly. If the question says, how much did you repay the bank? N times PMT. Yeah.
So are we in chapter 2 now?
Basically. I mixed them up. Yeah. If the question asks total paid for the item, so this could be a car, a house, you name it, you take what you paid the bank and you add the down payment to that. Okay? I'm not proud of my writing, but I'll make a cleaner version next year. So if you come back, it'll be nice. Why would I do that? I want to get out of here. Okay. Wanting to know the balance after X number of years, you just use that function balance and then years times PY. Some of you have to tell yourselves, make sure you quit TVM Solver before you call this. maybe you have to tell yourself that on the margins. Quit TVM solver, then use this. Because otherwise it's gonna insert it into your TVM. You don't want that. I'll get to this when I get to it, okay? Let me go from the top. So let's make sure we all understand that PV is our loan in this case. So I don't know where you can fit this in, but PV is the loan, okay? Once you take away the down payment, then you go to the bank and say, hey, can you borrow me this much, right? So PV is our loan. So let's make sure we add that. Additionally, does this one make sense to you? Total repaid to the bank. If you take N, which is our total number of payments, and we multiply it by whatever the payment is, this, I hope, would make sense to you. It's like that's how much you will have repaid them in total by the end of the loan. I need you to understand, you will always pay back more than what you borrowed. Does that make sense? Because of? Why is that? Starts with an I. Interest, right? The bank will borrow you the money. It's like, here you go. You've got 5 years to pay it back. But they'll charge you some interest. Every payment will have a little bit of interest, okay? That's why. Total paid for the item. So let's say you buy the car of your dreams, right? You now need to say, to be honest with everyone, you need to say, well, I will pay back this much to the bank, and I also put down a down payment. So in reality, this is how much the whole thing costs you when you're said and done. You got to put the interest as part of it because they charge you interest, right? It costs you more to pay it off in a longer period of time. Wanting to know the balance, I think this one everybody understands, right? This is still as before, like how much do I owe at any given time? You can either be sitting now and just wonder 3 years from now, how much am I gonna owe? 2 years, 5 years, right? You can ask that question. Amount paid off after X number of years, this is important. This will actually tell you, listen carefully, this actually tells you how much of your payments actually went towards paying off what you owe. Because not everything that your payment doesn't go towards paying off your loan, not the entire payment. Most of it, but not all of it. So this one, if you want to know how much you've actually paid off, you got to go principal, sum of PRN, it's also where balance and sum of interest is, and you got to go start and end. It's got to have a start and an end. Balance doesn't. Balance is just years times PY, but sum of interest and sum of principal needs a 1 and then years times PY, okay? Next. The maximum you can possibly afford. We're not going to start with this right away, but if you want to find out how much can I afford, we solve for PV, then we add the down payment to it. So that's the maximum you can possibly afford. And think about it, if you figure out that the loan that the bank will give you is 10 grand, and you've got 5 grand sitting in your checking, technically you can go look for a car that's worth 15, right? That's why this is how you do it. Last but not least, this one here, this is if your payment is $150 a month, let's say, and listen carefully, and you solve for N, and N is 2.67. I did 6.7 on purpose, okay? then the last payment, the very last payment, is not a full payment. Watch this. It's telling you it's 2 full payments of $150, and your last payment is not quite $150. Look at what I did. I grabbed the 0.67. I'm going to highlight that. I grabbed the 0.67, and 0.67 times 150, your last payment will actually be less than 150. And that's just how loans work out. It's not always a nice round amount towards the end, okay? How many payments, though, would it take? Number of payments? If I asked you, how many payments did it take to pay off this loan, what would you say? 2? 3? Yes. 3 payments. It's just that the last one was not quite a full payment. This is very rare, what I just did here, like the 0.67 having to multiply. I've never seen it, in fact, on an exam. But I think you need to know that, right? That the reason that when you solve for n that you have like a decimal, it tells you that the last payment isn't a full payment. Okay? You're probably tired just copying this already, right? So please find a way, if I were you, find a way to transfer this onto your study sheet under borrowing money. I think it's going to be very beneficial. You can do probably a much better job at compressing this. So let's start our journey through this now. Now we're going to use them. So can you go to page 64. '64. Okay. Let's start with this. It's not part of your notes, but if you just sketch this. If you looked at time in months and the dollar amount of each payment, every single payment would be the same. Let's just make a couple of bars. We don't have to have that many. This is on page 64. Every single payment is the same because once the bank decides this is your payment, it stays the same. But did you know that every single payment is part principal and part interest? Every single payment. And as the months progress, guess what? The chunk that is interest is going to get slightly smaller. Next month comes by, you owe a little bit less, it's going to be even smaller. Even smaller. And it's almost non-existent towards the end. But interest kind of gets smaller and smaller as time goes by because you owe less and less. But the fact remains that every single payment is part principal and part interest. So when you do sum of principal, pay attention to this, sum of principal, it's adding up the principal that you've paid every single payment. It's adding all of that up for you. If you do sum of interest, guess what it's doing? It's adding the interest that you've paid in every single payment. It's combining all of that, okay? So that's what's happening here. And perhaps I will leave this awesome demonstration here, this awesome image for tomorrow. Because I think right now you've heard enough. We'll just do a couple of examples and then we'll jump back onto this next time. So let's go and do at least 2 examples I want to do today so that you can try some yourselves. So let's go to 65. Example without payments. Guess what? This is going to be an example without payments. Trina's employer loaned her $10,000 at a fixed rate of 6%, compounded annually for textbooks and tuition. The loan is to be repaid in a single payment at the end of the 5 years. How much will Trina need to pay her employer at maturity? So let's do that. NIPV. You do this every time. If you want to use the TVM, all of the values need to show up. If you miss even one, you lose half right away. Okay? Compounded annually, what does that mean? Once a year? Are there any regular payments being made? No. There are no quarterly payments, there are no monthly payments, there's nothing regularly happening, so we turn this into 0. And what do we do with PY then? We have no choice but to make CY and PY the same. Future value in this case is not 0, it is what we're going to solve for. We start with a loan of $10,000, that's our present value. This is the loan. Before we start, is there any down payment at all mentioned here? No. So that stays 10 grand. We are at 6%, and this is a 5 year, so it's 5 times PY, so it's just 5. So let's go ahead and solve this. So 5 years go by, future value. So you're going to owe $13,382.26. Does it make sense that it's negative? Because you're going to have to give this to your boss, right? To your employer. So this is the amount. I don't write it down because once you solve, you're good. Okay, this is just for TVM. TVM wants you to know which way the money is going, okay? So we're good. That's how much. How much did the loan cost her? What is it asking for? Interest. So we've got a choice here. We can use this one, sum of interest. You want all of it, so it's from the very first to, if you want all of it, just go copy whatever N is. Or you just go 5 years times PY. It's still going to be 5 no matter how you slice it. Can you tell what the interest was? Just mental math. From 10 to 13, 3,000 and something, right? So quit this second mode. I'm going to go apps, finance. Sum of interest is way down there. 1,5. That can't be, right? Oh, sorry, yeah. Copy, paste, change it to 5. There we go. There we go. I was looking at this can't be. It's 3,000 something, I know it. 26, there you go. Or you can use the formula on page, what is it, 68? Interest? Yes, Sean. Just don't let the negative scare you, because why is it negative? Because that's interest that you're being charged, so it's going to leave you, right? You're going to have to give it to the bank. You don't have to put the negative down. But if you do, you don't lose any marks. Okay, so just be okay with it. This is the one thing that I'm going to tell you. Don't, like, if you're going to work with that number elsewhere at all, don't use that negative in front. So I would just not include it. Okay, let's use the formula. It's, there are no payments, so it's just this. Why am I using this one? I'll show you real quick here. It's either that or that, it doesn't matter. But look at page 68. I'm going to show you where I get this formula from. You cannot use this one because this one, it involves a payment, a regular payment. So I use this one here, and I do have a little note saying if there are no payments, use this version. However, if at all possible, right, use sum of interest. Just use that. It's going to be much faster. But you cannot use it when n is a decimal. Then do not use this one. It's not going to be able to give it the accurate answer. Okay. C. C. What would you expect to happen to the cost of the loan if the interest was compounded monthly? Would it cost you more or would it cost you less if it gets compounded more frequently? Because here we have compounded once, right? Monthly compounded 12 times. It would result in a more costly loan. You wouldn't want that. It's not good for you when you're borrowing money. When you're investing, the higher the compounding, the better. Okay? So it would cost more. Since I would say since 12 is greater than 1. More compounding equals higher interest. More compounding, higher interest. So it's good when you're investing, it's bad when you're paying back. And on a loan, you want the lowest possible compounding period. Same with interest rate. Investing, high as possible. Borrowing, low as possible. Okay, let's go to the more common example here. Lars borrowed $12,000 from a bank, 5% compounded monthly, to buy a new jet ski. Lars negotiated a regular loan payment of $350 at the end of each month until the loan is paid off. How long will it take Lars to pay off the loan? Before we answer that, I'm going to put a curveball already. Let's assume a $2,000 down payment. So let's assume we're making a $2,000 down payment here. I just added that because I want you to get used to checking for it. So let's do A here. NIPV. We're told that this is compounded monthly, so CY is 12. Our payments are how often are they happening? End of each month, so that means monthly, correct? So then you go 12. Future value, what is it going to be? We're trying to pay it off, right? As time goes by, so 0, okay? Payment, it's $350. However, it's very important that you know what sign goes with the $350. You're giving it to the bank. So just like investing, actually, it is also negative when you give it to the bank, okay? Except for there, you want to take it out at the end. What's my present value? Watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take 12,000. I'm going to take away the 2,000, which ends up being 10,000. You're actually borrowing 10,000 in this case. Something happened, you found 2,000 under your pillow. Check after this, okay? And all of a sudden you're only borrowing 10,000, so that's important. And it is positive because it's coming to you. So if you want to put a plus there, that is probably a good idea. 5%. So what's left? N. Does it make sense that that's question mark? Because it's asking for how long. N, really? That's where you find your time, okay? So let's solve it. Apps, enter, enter. We go 0 for now, 5, 10 grand, negative 350. We've got 0, 12, and 12. I'm going all the way to N, alpha, enter, 30.4837. I'm going to write down at least 4 decimals because you can't copy paste that later. So how long? It doesn't say in years. It doesn't say anything like that. So time in years, you just take N divided by PY. So it's 30.4837 divided by 12. Right? So we're going to go arrow from here That's 2.54 years. Is it okay to give the years as a decimal? Yeah, because time is continuous, right? We can break this down into months, days, and so forth. However, I want to add a little note here. How many payments? How many payments would it be? 31, right? So I will make a note. This is N. So we'll say approximately 31 payments. Because the last one is, you still have another one, but it's not going to be a full payment. But it's still taking you 31 payments to pay this off. So if it's time, just do it like that. If it's number of payments, you do it like that. Okay. This happened, was it this last exam or one couple years back? What if it asked you for the age of the person? Let's say you were 20 when you started the loan. How old will Lars be when he's done paying off the loan? 22 or 23? Technically would say 22. Because you're not quite turning 23, right? You're going to pay it off in 2.5 years or so. So in that case, you would say 22 years old. Why so serious, guys? Doesn't it make sense? Right, 22. Anyways, it's half a mark we're talking about. It's half a mark. So don't sweat it too much. But if you like to be, get 100%, then that's what you need to watch out for. B. What is the balance owing after 1 year? What will you use? Balance 1 times PY. Please try this. Balance of 12. So I'm going to go apps, finance. This will not work unless you solve TVM with me. If you didn't do all of this with me, it's not going to work for you. So make sure you solve it first. I'm going to go call balance. So after a year, you're gonna owe this much still. Okay? C. What would be the balance owing on the final payment? I don't like how it's written. I'm asking you, what would be the amount of your final payment? I'll say this, final payment. What are we going to use? We're going to use this last little bit here, 0.4837. Times whatever my payment was, which is 169.30. D, what is the total cost of the loan to Lars? Cost of loan is called interest. Total interest. It's called the finance charge. I'm going to figure it out by using sum of interest. Oh, I almost made the mistake. Can I use sum of interest here? I cannot use it because n is a decimal. You got to be kidding me, right? You got to be kidding me. Why would you make it that complicated? You can't do decimals and sum of interest. It just won't work. So what do I have to use instead? The formula, you guessed it. I is equal to n times PMT minus PV. You got to use that one because there are regular payments. That would be 30.4837 times 350 minus my PV is 10,000. You can calculate that, but you're going to get 669.30. Sorry, folks back there. I'm going to bring this up a little bit for you. Okay. I'm going to stop there. I want you to try I wrote it down on a sticky note. I want you to try pages. I want you to try 66 right next to this, as well as 99 to 101, I believe. Yeah, it's buried way back there. 99, let me just check. 99 to 101, yeah. Couple of things before you try this. There may be questions where you have to add taxes first. Like if you're buying a car and it says plus taxes, you have to add 12% tax to that car. There may be. If it says something about appreciation or depreciation, got it, guys? Don't worry about those just yet. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. So just do the loan part, the balance, the interest, things like that. The payment, how long, all of those things, that's what I want you to focus on.